Welcome to Call Me Obsessed podcast. For this episode, I have my friend Jessica, who I've known for 30 plus years, to join me for this lifestyle edition episode. Welcome back to Call Me Obsessed podcast. I'm Erin.
And I'm Jessica.
Today's lifestyle conversation feels very personal. So Jessica, we talk always about being in relationships, wanting a relationships, avoiding relationships, but we don't ever talk about the fulfillment about being in a relationship and what it actually means.
This conversation isn't about advice, timelines, or telling anyone what they should be doing. It's just two people talking honestly about lived experiences, growth, and what we've learned along the way.
Jessica, between you and I, who've known each other forever, we definitely know each other's history.
Definitely.
I always thought like being in a relationship was something that was just right. You had to do. If you were partnered, you were ready to move forward, even when I wasn't actually happy. But now I look back and I was like, I wasn't truly happy.
The society and the way that we live and the expectations we put on people, that's just that natural progression. My dad always said it's like college and then you get a job and you get married and you buy a house. And that's just the way that things go. People are changing. People are waiting these days to take all of those steps, if they even take them at all. Every individual is going to be a little bit different in how they want to do it. Emotional fulfillment can also look different depending on where you are in life.
I would always feel like in my 20s, I was behind everyone because all my friends were getting married and having kids. And I felt like I wasn't getting that fulfillment that everyone else was having. And now in my 40s, I just aged us. I don't regret that one bit.
Some of that is about learning who you are, though, as well. I'll say in my 20s, too, all of my friends, we got out of college. Many of them got married. And so that was the expectation. I did the same thing. Pretty quickly realized that wasn't necessarily where I wanted to be in life. And no offense to my ex-husband, he's just a great person. It became pretty clear that maybe that wasn't really the role that I wanted to play at that point in my life.
And there's something about that fulfillment and realizing that and then getting out of that situation. I'm a true believer that every relationship, friendship, lover, husband, friend, whatever kind of relationship you have with people is meant for a reason. But I always think it helps us grow in fulfillment in life in general.
Absolutely. Every relationship, there's a reason, right? It might be a lesson. It might be the greatest experience in your life. But either way, everything really comes at the right time in the right place. So you can have a great connection with somebody, but maybe for whatever reason, timing is just off, but you're still taking something from that relationship. I do think it's important to recognize the lesson in every relationship. I still to this day have great relationships with most of the people that I have dated in my past. And I really value what they taught me about what I want out of a relationship, whether it's good or bad. Walk away from some relationships thinking, well, I don't want to do that again. But there's always the good things too that you take forward into the next relationship.
You still have really good relationships with some of your exes. Mm-hmm. And for me, I have the opposite. I don't speak to any of my exes. And I know for you, that's not the case. You really dated a lot. And that's not a bad thing.
Wait, that sounded terrible. But fair. I mean, no, fair. That's fine.
Who do I look up to who's really dated and put themselves out there for love? And I was like, Jessica, because no matter what you've been through, you don't have regrets.
I don't. Again, and it goes back to that looking back at every relationship and taking forward the parts of those relationships that I want to and leaving behind the things that didn't work. None of those people are bad people. For me personally, again, just speaking from my experience, they were all great and wonderful humans, and they came into my life at a point in time to teach me a lesson about, who I was and what I wanted in this world. I don't hold any grudges with any of them. And I also don't think that I would be the person I am today without each one of those relationships.
I absolutely know that's true because, Jessica, when we taught color guard together, your ex-husband was part of that whole experience, and that would have not have been the same without him.
He was definitely there for us during that time, which was sometimes challenging, but an amazing experience all around.
Because you guys were dating at the time. for some of it. I think you actually were married for the end of our career.
Yes.
Watching you grow in that relationship, like he didn't just go to the bar or go hang out with his friends. He was there to support you. I could see a true friendship.
And I think that's the key to a good relationship too. The older I've gotten, I will say the more maybe independent that I've become. But the basis of a good relationship isn't necessarily that you want to do everything the same all the time or you have all the same interests. But when you know that that person has a passion about something, showing up to support them in that, even if it's not something that you particularly care to do or want to be doing on that day, that particular relationship, he was always there helping us unload the floor or whatever it was out of the back of the truck, not necessarily because he wanted to, but because he knew it was important to me. So if you can find those relationships where you have that connection, I think that just makes it more rich in terms of a relationship and more fulfilling.
On the flip side, I was dating someone when we were teaching, and it was the total opposite. So that's what's the difference is that he had to repeatedly ask, when's the show? He was late to some of the shows. He only tried to go to 2. And that just shows how every relationship is different.
Some of that comes down to, as you look at the breakdown of those relationships, maybe staying longer than I necessarily should have or would have in some of those relationships where things weren't working. I think everybody has those kind of things where you're like, I wish I would have handled that differently or tweaked the way that I responded to that. And I think it still always comes back to there's a lesson in that. Even though it's difficult, maybe right initially, but taking that in and remembering that for the next time. So you're not carrying that forward into the next relationship.
And I can relate to that now that I've lived that relationship. That was actually my first long-term relationship with that somebody I was really attracted to. I now can look at this and be like, I was just really attracted to him. It was my first lust relationship. We were together 7 years. We had good chemistry, good conversation at times, and I just thought I truly loved him. Jessica, looking back at that relation, I was hypnotized with all of that.
Absolutely. That it kind of imbalance too can just wear you down from a relationship perspective.
And what I've learned now, understanding that that stuff is important in a relationship, but it's not everything.
The longer you're in a relationship, that kind of stuff can fade out. Most people who've been in a relationship know when it first starts out, there's all these feelings and things and everything's great and it's new and you want to be with them all the time and think about them all the time. And at some point that starts to fade out and fade into the background. So if you're not building that relationship on a foundation of friendship first or some type of connection, when that initial warm and fuzzy feeling of all new relationships starts to wear off, left looking at each other like, do I even really like this person?
That's a really healthy question to ask yourself. And I just wish I would have asked it a lot more.
Or there's been times where I maybe let things go on longer than I should have, just because I knew it was naturally coming to an end. Every time I start to have that feeling, you have to trust that feeling in yourself too. And just know if you're getting to a place where you really feel like I'm not behaving like myself anymore, then it's probably time to take a hard look at who you have around you. And honestly, this is any relationship, but with friends as well, taking that time to evaluate who you have around you. And it, as hard as it can be sometimes, is maybe time to make a change.
Being honest with yourself and honest with those relationships, I think is really part of fulfilling that fulfillment in your life's eras as well. Because as I got older, I got more honest with myself. I've always known you for being in long-term relationships. I felt like when you dated, they were longer. But then this was from someone who didn't really date until she got into her late 20s.
High school, in my 20s, early 30s, for sure. I would say longer relationships, but also consecutive relationships. In that time, very little time that I actually spent with myself, all the way up until my mid 30s, I would say.
I was in one other long-term relationship myself. And Jessica, I didn't even like him. I dated him because everyone said, oh, you're too picky. Give him a try. He just wasn't we didn't have anything come, but I was like, you know what? I am going to do this because everyone is pressuring me to date. So I did. And we were together for about 5 years. And I look back at that and what a waste of time I wasn't fulfilled as myself. So that era has taught me so much. And that is trust your gut, be in love, and have fulfillment within yourself.
Absolutely. I think the first one, trust your gut, that has to be number one. I will go back and say, though, you said 5 years wasted, but then followed it up with, I learned so much. So I would be hesitant to say that was wasted because you did still learn something about yours from that relationship.
I'd rather be single than ever be that unhappy again.
And I do think there's something about getting older where that being okay with that becomes more, for a lot of people, myself included, more acceptable. I was in more long-term relationships from the time I was a sophomore in high school until my mid 30s. After that, I was single for a very long time, dated, but single. And it's really at this point in my life, bringing somebody into my life isn't just about, oh, I want to just have somebody here. They need to actually have value within the life that I've built. Having a child who is great and wonderful and keeps me on my toes. At the end of the day, there's less of me to give out because aside from being a mom, making sure that I'm providing all the things she needs takes up a large portion of that energy. So if I'm going to put something into a relationship, it has to be about more than just that physical attraction, right? It has to be somebody that's going to be able to bring value into not only my life, but her life as well. And at the same time, I'm completely okay with being myself. Yeah. I often will take trips by myself, not because I don't have people in my life that I want to hang out with or have relationships with, but I genuinely like the person that I've become. And these relationships throughout growing up, I guess I don't like to think that I'm grown yet at all until I'm much older, but all of those lessons and all of those relationships have made me who I am today. And I like the person that I am, which I also think you bring that light and that energy into a relationship as well. So when you do find somebody that you connect with, it's on a deeper level than just, I think you're really attractive. I mean, certainly that helps if you're attracted to them, but it's definitely when you have that fulfillment within yourself, you're putting out a different energy into the world and you're bringing in people that are going to resonate with that energy as well.
What you're talking about is what I call Jessica's mom era. And if you would have gone through those other eras in your life that you've gone through, that love, that heartbreak, that growth, I don't know if you would have been a mom.
Was a teenager, I wasn't going to have. And as I got older, I will say I was 33 when I had my daughter. So not I'm not going to say old, but older than a lot of other people I know in my life that were having kids. I got to a point where I thought, I think I would be really sad if I got to the end of my life and I hadn't had that experience. But I also think that it helped me when you're in your 20s, there's a different vibe about being in your 20s.
It's a whole different vibe.
It's a little bit about survival. You're just getting started in your career. You're trying to figure out, is this really what I want to be doing with the rest of my life? Money can be an issue. And me waiting until I was a little bit more established in some of that stuff, I think has helped just ground me a little bit more as it relates to being a mom. And I wouldn't go back and change any of the way that happened.
That I always thought I'd be like this mom full of kids because I nannied. I went in childhood development. So that was my mom era of my 20s. I always wanted a family, but now I'm in the era of that is not for me. I am so happy being an aunt that I'm okay with saying goodbye to certain eras that never came to fruition. And it was like a switch.
It was.
Once you had Hannah and you got pregnant, I was so happy for you. I could have had a baby. I could have been a mom, but I didn't want to do that single. But I'm a great aunt and I'm totally fulfilled with the role that this earth has given me. And who knows in 10 years if I can be a stepmom or some type of guardian. But I stand very sat where I am on that. And I think that would surprise a lot of my friends and family.
It definitely is a reversal for the two of us from where we started in our younger years. There's a lot of ways to be a parent or be parental. You may date somebody who has kids, and my family had foster kids that came into our family as well. And so that's another way to help if that's something that you want to do. I would like to echo your comments about being a great aunt though, because yes, I think that you are. It truly, other than being a parent, is probably one of my biggest joys in life. And I take a lot of pride in being not only a good aunt, but the favorite aunt to my nieces and nephews. And I will do whatever it takes to remain on that throne, because there is something about those relationships that you get to be a little more fun and free. Being a parent and an aunt, it's an interesting kind of dynamic, because being a mom, my child, we have fun and there are things we do together that are fun, but I also am responsible for setting the rules and making sure she grows up to be a good steward of the human race and a kind human. And so that takes boundaries. And with my nieces and nephews, I can buy them 5 pounds of M&Ms at the store and be the light of their life and then give them back to their parents, which is a phenomenal, wonderful relationship as well.
I love that we both love our aunt era. I love it.
Yeah, yes.
Thoughts. This is my loving myself single era for me. And I've been asked out. I've gone on dates, but if they're not going to fit into my life now that I am so happy and fortunate to have, I have no interest.
Absolutely. We all have an emotional bank, right? You wake up every day with only so much to give. And with the little that's left, once you take care of yourself and take care of anybody else that's in your life, your job, and all of those things, you get to decide where you spend the rest of that bank at the end of the day. Do you want to just throw it away on something that's just okay? Sometimes you do have to get out there and try some of those, because you don't know, right?
That's a very good point, Jessica. Yes. I am not into the era of where I'm trying hard enough. I just don't have an interest right now, but that is a really good point. If I'm sitting at home and I'm feeling sorry for myself that I don't have anybody to hang out with or experience life with, and I'm not out there trying, that's on me.
But I also think too, probably 8 years ago, I started going on a trip around my birthday every year. And sometimes I go with friends, or if somebody I'm dating, oftentimes I go by myself. And a part of that was because I didn't want to just sit at home and wait. There's so much stuff to see and do in this world that if you just sit and wait for the right person, wait for the right relationship, you're going to miss a lot in this world that this world has to offer. But I also think that, yes, you have to put yourself out there. I've also found that the right person comes in sometimes when you least expect it, but always at the right time.
I've always been told that saying about things come when you least expect it. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting for that least expect it.
You do have to leave the house, though.
That's true.
Unless the cable goes out and maybe the cable repairman is the man of your dreams.
Do you have a soulmate era?
I
know the answer.
Well, what is your answer? I'd like to hear that.
Oh, the answer is totally a yes.
Yeah, I would say that there are certain relationships that I have had that when you think back on it, come to the forefront of my mind and maybe hold a bigger place. You think about those relationships with just a little bit different kind of tone. And maybe some of that's rose-colored glasses. There are certain individuals that will always be just a little bit more special.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Even in the relationship where I was infatuated, I learned what lust was.
It's an important thing to learn.
And I would never have had that. I've also learned what laziness means through that relationship. I'm not here trying to blame the exes, because trust me, I was no angel in some of these relationships too. But it comes down to where you are now in the era of your life. If this stuff did not happen and those feelings did not come, we would not be the people we are today. Your fulfillment in life has changed in a way that mine hasn't, and that is with motherhood.
Becoming a parent is the most anxiety, emotional filled roller coaster of my absolute life. And it started the moment I found out I was pregnant. All of a sudden, my entire existence was about keeping this growing human safe. And it still guides everything that I do. She's 12 now, but still they're everything. And you have to be available and teaching them. And they know nothing when they arrive. And being responsible for another human is the most rewarding and terrifying and emotional experience of my life, which makes me grateful that I was a little bit older when I went through that experience. But it also means that that point forward, everyone else comes in second place. For the rest of my life, she takes the number one spot. And sometimes that's hard for people to accept. And again, this isn't just romantic relationships, but friendships as well. And it's exhausting raising humans. So at the end of the day, I didn't have anything left for anybody else. But now that she's older and I look to expanding my network of people, whether again, it's friendships or romantic partnerships, we come as a package deal. There is no relationship that I could have that she doesn't come along with. And sometimes that can be difficult as well, especially as a parent dating somebody who maybe doesn't have children and not being willing to compromise on any of that. Because she's only little for a very short period of time. It does take a special kind of person to understand that. But you want to find the people that, number one, can understand that. You don't just get me without having that ability to accept her.
That level of clarity that's powerful, Jessica.
Part of self-care for me is also putting her first, because if I'm not at my best, I can't show up for her. I can't show up for anybody, not to get too stereotypical, but moms tend to go without. And I won't sit here and pretend there weren't times when she was little that it wasn't like, did I wash my hair in the last week? Because you're almost in survival mode in some of those time frames. But the older I've gotten, and it gets a little bit easier the older they get as well, because they can do more things for themselves. But I think that I've come to understand that self-care is just as important to that mantra of putting them first. Because I wouldn't be able to show up for her as fully if I didn't do that for myself.
And you've always led with love and affection. And that has always come natural for me in a way where sometimes it's overbearing.
We grew up in a different time frame where parents weren't necessarily as overtly talking about I love yous and I'm proud of yous. There was actions that my parents were doing, which I know my parents loved me then, love me now, and were proud of me. But in that time, it wasn't necessarily something that was just talked about in that way. It's very different for my daughter and I today, where she doesn't leave in the morning without me saying, have a great day at school. I love you. Be safe. That is literally, whether it's in a text message or I'm verbally saying it to her as she's walking out the door. That's just, I think we've come into an era culturally where the words are just as important as the actions. And so making sure that we're using that vocabulary with each other and when we're talking to our kids, it has become just as important as the actions. But I would say that that's been more of a learned thing as I've gotten older than just a natural kind of development.
I love that that's so different between us. And that's powerful. It shows change, growth, things that come natural to different people and all that. Like, that's crazy, but I've always seen that in you. That's so funny how you have said the way you said that. For me, it was the complete opposite. You were always there for me. We always had a connection. I remember if I was like, I'm an adult, I'm in my 20s era. But then again, you were a little bit older, but I know the growth is so important. It just, this whole thing of all of us talking about growth throughout the eras is so powerful. And until you actually talk about it, you blindly how we can get, we always were able to give each other advice throughout all of our eras. Even if we went through a few months without talking, it always just felt like I just talked to you last week.
Absolutely. And I think that's the hallmarks of a good friendship too. I have of my best friend from college who, same thing. I'll go for a couple weeks or a month and go, oh, have I talked to her recently? I better send a quick message. And then you just pick it up and it's like nothing has changed because you have that shared history and you've been through stuff that people that I know today that maybe have come into my life in a later time, they know me as I am today. They don't necessarily know the struggle that it was back then to make me who I am today. It's not that they're any less important.
I feel so lucky. I know all that.
You've been there since almost the beginning, right? And if we think about high school as the beginning of really growing up and embracing who you are and who you want to be, you've been there, seen it all.
I was always sitting on your dad. Oh man, I didn't know that I liked older men then.
Nothing wrong with knowing what you like.
Nothing. That was my know what you want era. Never changed. I like that era. That era is still continuing.
Nothing wrong with that. If I could talk to my younger self as I look back over all these eras and the things that I've learned, that I would say is there isn't a soul on this earth that knows how much time they have left. It truly is the most important commodity that we have and when it's gone. So all of these relationships that you build need to add value. And when they don't anymore, you take that lesson and you move on and find the next person that can bring light and love and adventure and excitement into your life. Some people are meant to be there for the long haul, and some people are meant to be there for a short season in your life. And being okay with that and learning to be okay with that has been a critical kind of lesson that I've taken and that I would want to share with my younger self, to not get so hung up on the things that didn't work, but to just be able to accept the beauty for what it was and then take that forward and find that next person. Because truly, we've talked a lot about how all of those decisions and all of those people help shape us who we are. And loving your brings a different light, and then you attract the right people into your life as you come to know and love yourself.
That was actually really beautiful. I love that. Jessica, if I had the chance to go tell myself a piece of advice, it would be you. Believe in yourself. Put yourself first. You are amazing. I think just those key advice moments of myself telling myself that, I feel I would be in the same place where I am today, but I would not have that, like you said, wasted time. Even though the word wasted, I want to put love on it. I'm just putting a Band-Aid over it. I would have maybe a few other things sooner. I would have more time. If I would still be where I am, but I maybe be 39 and not 43. Jessica, have you seen that movie, He's Just Not That Into You?
I have. It's been a minute, but I have.
The scene where Gigi lunges towards Jason Long's character and he's like, whoa, why do you think we're dating? And then she goes into this big monologue.
Definitely relatable. It speaks to the themes that we've been talking about and what I have experienced over my eras too. It's better to want to be with somebody who wants to be with you. A one-sided relationship is not any fun for the person that's kind of on the wrong side of that. I would rather be with somebody who loves and appreciates my authentic self rather than being told you're too much or that's be less who you are because it's more convenient for me if you're less.
He shames her about putting herself out there. And it's just one of those moments that's so relatable.
Well, and in a little bit, we talk about if you don't put yourself out there, how are you going to find your people in this world? You do have to try some things and so I'd much rather be with somebody who likes me for who I authentically am. And even with the flaws, we all have flaws, can embrace that.
And the other point of that too, I want to just I think when he judges her about putting herself out there, I think it's really important also, if you're not comfortable yet to put yourself out there for dating, put yourself out there with friendships.
Yes.
Just as important.
100%. Some of my best and most fulfilling and longest relationships have been with friends. They're the people that you're going to call when that relationship goes wrong, the ones that when the good stuff happens, you're going to want to tell them. And how many girls' trips, sitting on the beach, doing nothing but reading a book, but just having those people in your life that if you needed them, you could pick up the phone and call them, even if you haven't talked to them in a long time. And you say, I need you, and they'll be there. That's just as important as a romantic relationship.
Jessica, what do you think of the famous quote, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all," by Alfred Lord?
Great quote, and fully stand by it. We talk about friendship and romantic relationships. This could be for both. The things that I've learned throughout those relationships that have helped me be me, I just feel like my life would be in a much different spot if I hadn't put myself out there in those relationships and tried. And all of those people, again, beautiful humans that have gone on to do great and wonderful things in this world. And I like to think that I've taken little pieces of them with me from a lesson perspective. And I wouldn't have that if I hadn't put myself out there and tried. And for one reason or another, those relationships all ended, but I wouldn't go back and erase them from my history. And because I wouldn't be who I was today without each one of them.
That quote is very good. I personally just love that quote. It makes a lot of sense with the theme here. Jessica, before we wrap up, what is your favorite era?
Honestly, I have to say it's right now. It's all of the lessons that I've learned about myself and who I want to be. And then being a mom and my daughter getting a little bit older, I've found who I want to be to the point where I have found a relationship that it feels different. It just feels a connectedness that I haven't had maybe in previous relationships, but it's using all of those lessons that I've learned from those. So I have to say, without a doubt, right now is my favorite era. And I do think it's because of the work that I put in over the years on myself and really understanding who I was and what I wanted from this life. How about you though? Favorite era?
The Erin era, all about me. It's the self-love, putting myself first, my mental health era. If that does not have the pillars, I cannot be who I am today. I couldn't have done what I've done. So that is my favorite era, is when I'm healthy, I lead with love, and I truly feel like I'm being my authentic self.
Yep. Which will come back to you. Absolutely. You put that light and love out there, the right person comes along when they're supposed to.
Yeah. Jessica, thank you for joining me for this lifestyle conversation. I hope to have you back soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.